Mr. J. Luis Correa, raises critical concerns about the Trump administration's immigration enforcement, highlighting cases where law-abiding immigrants, U.S. citizens, and veterans were targeted. His questioning underscores the human cost, resource misallocation, and ethical questions surrounding federal enforcement priorities.
Secretary Noem, Trump administration, you're going after the worst of the worst criminals, and we agree with you. The problem is 70% of the people you've arrested have no criminal record. You're going after non-criminal immigrants, U.S. citizens, and permanent legal residents. Donna Hughes Brown, Irish citizen, green card holder, 48 years in the United States. She also happens to be the mother of a U.S. Marine, sister to a retired Army colonel. She's in ICE detention since July. She tried to come back from Ireland, arrested, has been there since then. Her crime? She wrote 2 bad checks for less than $80 a decade ago. You arrested her, she's in custody. Her husband, Jim Brown, came to us and told us her story. Jim told us, I voted for President Trump because he promised to go after criminals in our community and not people like my wife. If I can, I'd like to play a video for you. Voted for President Trump.
Yes, sir.
Why did you vote for him?
Because I was an idiot. 80% of the evangelical Christian people were lied to, if you really want to know the truth, and that's exactly what happened. They said criminal, and I believe criminals need to be off the street.
I just want to make sure people watching this understand who you are.
My wife and I, when we don't work, we're ministers. We help the needy. That's what we do. And that's who they're arresting.
Now we've got Mr. Jim Brown before you. He's standing up. Hopefully you can talk to him a little bit. These people, Donna Hughes Brown, are not the individuals that should be deported. Another case, Narciso Barranco was beaten and arrested by masked agents while working as a landscaper. He's an undocumented immigrant, 30 years in this country, not a traffic ticket. Mr. Barranco is also the father of 3 U.S. Marines. 3 Marines. You want to make a movie of people like this. A man who comes to this country, instills patriotism in his kids. They swear an oath to serve and possibly give up their life for this country. We'll play a video on this as well, please.
Masked federal agents were filmed pinning a man to the ground and repeatedly striking him in the head and neck before putting him in an unmarked car. The man in the video has been identified as Narciso Barranco and is the father of 2 active duty Marines and 1 Marine veteran. The Department of Homeland Security said an illegal alien was arrested by Border Patrol agents after he, quote, assaulted federal law enforcement, adding that Barranco, quote, swung a weed whacker directly at an agent's face. Video shared by DHS and reviewed by CNN shows Barranco running with a weed whacker, but does not show him striking officers.
I also have with us today Alex Barranco behind you, a retired Marine. That's his father. And Alex, on behalf of myself, members here, I want to thank you for your service to our country, and we also thank your brothers for serving our great country. Thank you very much. Got another case. George Rete, 25-year-old, native of California, my home state. He's a U.S. citizen, Army veteran who served in Iraq. Well, on his way to work, he came to an immigration checkpoint. Pulled over. I don't know where officers deployed tear gas on him, broke his car window, pepper sprayed him, and dragged him out of his car. An American citizen held for 72 hours without any charges, wasn't even given the opportunity to shower, to wash off that paper spray.
Gentleman's time's expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 articles I'd like to present for the record.
Unanimous consent.
Under President Trump, an agency intended to keep Americans safe has diverted resources from child abuse, trafficking, and terrorism to immigration enforcement. Second is this letter from my Orange County Sheriff, Don Barnes, essentially talking about all the individuals under Prop 50 referred to ICE 2025 year to date. 50 of them,
Without objection.
ICE never showed up to pick them up.
Without
Mr.
objection.
Chairman?
I will
Mr. Chairman?
entertain.
Mr. J. Luis Correa's exchange during the hearing raises serious concerns about the Trump administration's approach to immigration enforcement and the human cost of its policies. While officials frequently claim that their priority is targeting the worst of the worst criminals, Correa underscores that the majority of arrests, about 70%, involve individuals with no criminal record. These actions are not limited to undocumented immigrants. They also affect U.S. citizens, long-term legal residents, and families who have contributed to their communities, raising questions about proportionality, fairness, and public trust in federal law enforcement. Correa emphasizes that the policies, while ostensibly designed to improve safety, are often misaligned with both practical priorities and moral expectations. He begins with the case of Donna Hughes Brown, an Irish citizen and green card holder who has lived in the U.S. for 48 years. Brown is the mother of a U.S. Marine and the sister of a retired Army colonel, yet she has been detained by ICE since July for 2 minor bad checks, written more than a decade ago, totaling less than $80. Her arrest highlights the gap between the stated focus on dangerous criminals and the reality of targeting low-risk individuals. Correa amplifies the human impact of this case by sharing her husband Jim Brown's perspective. Jim voted for President Trump, believing that the administration would prioritize actual criminal threats rather than law-abiding residents like his wife. His statement that both he and his wife are ministers who help the needy underscores the moral dimension. Enforcement actions are affecting people who are actively contributing to their communities, which can erode public confidence in the justice system. Correa then presents the case of Narciso Barranco, an undocumented immigrant who has lived in the U.S. for 30 years without a criminal record. Barranco, a father of 3 U.S. Marines, was detained in a violent raid while working as a landscaper. Video footage shows federal agents pinning him to the ground and striking him in the head and neck before placing him in an unmarked vehicle. The Department of Homeland Security alleged that he attacked federal officers with a weed whacker, but the video does not show any contact with agents, calling into question the proportionality of the response. Correa uses this case to highlight a broader systemic problem. Law-abiding immigrants are being treated as criminal threats, while resources are diverted away from addressing serious criminal activity, undermining both public safety and agency credibility. Another example Correa cites is George Rhee, a 25-year-old U.S. citizen and Army veteran. Rhee was detained at an immigration checkpoint, pepper-sprayed, tear-gassed, and forcibly removed from his car for 72 hours without charges or basic accommodations. This case illustrates that aggressive enforcement measures do not solely impact immigrants. They can also harm citizens who have served their country, reinforcing the argument that the administration's priorities are misaligned and that civil liberties are at risk. Correa further stresses the misallocation of federal resources, noting that ICE and other agencies have redirected personnel from combating child abuse, human trafficking, violent crime, and terrorism to immigration enforcement that targets low-risk individuals. He references letters from law enforcement, including Orange County Sheriff Don Barnes, which highlight instances where ICE failed to act on referrals, further demonstrating inefficiency and raising doubts about the effectiveness of these policies. Through these examples, Correa frames the administration's immigration enforcement as not just a policy issue, but a human rights concern. His questioning emphasizes the need for accountability, proportionality, and ethical application of law, arguing that enforcement should be guided by public safety priorities and fairness, not political theater. By highlighting the personal stories of those affected, Correa calls attention to the real-world consequences of federal action, illustrating that aggressive and indiscriminate policies risk undermining trust in law enforcement, destabilizing communities, and harming individuals who have lawfully contributed to society. His testimony is a powerful reminder that enforcement decisions have far-reaching implications beyond statistics. They affect families, communities, and the moral legitimacy of federal agencies.